Okay, Pace, we are back in this series, creative financing series that we're doing.
Are you guys liking this series? If you are, you better tell us down below because we're sitting here, no food, no water, no bathroom breaks, slaving away for you guys.
Putting in a ton of work.
Yes.
Pace revealing all of his strategies. This is great. Well, this one's important because in the last video, if you guys missed it, make sure you're watching these videos. If you can, watch them in order, then go back and watch them in whatever order you want. But in the last video we did, Pace, we talked about sub 2. You gave away some great strategies on where to find these deals, why it makes sense. You explained the whole process, gave some stories that will allow you to be able to explain this process to your sellers. But every time I talk about sub 2 on my channel, which isn't very much, but every time I talk about it, I get all these objections, especially if the video goes kind of viral and then you're getting non-real estate people that watch it, and then they know everything, right? And so these objections come up, but they're real objections. There's some 5, maybe 6 that we're gonna talk about that are legit objections that you're more than likely gonna run into with the seller about taking over their payment. And so you know these like the back of your hand because you deal with them every single day.
Yeah.
Let's help the viewer really understand these so that when they come up, they know how to address them, or even better yet, what you do is you just address them before they even become concerns.
Yeah, I actually have one of my favorite testimonials I ever got from a seller was a seller named Dave. And he wrote a testimonial talking about how I came in, solved a problem with his house through utilizing subject 2. And in his testimonial, I want to pull it up, but I also don't want to waste time because, you know, whatever. But he goes into the testimony, he says, my favorite thing about Pace is that he brought up objections I didn't even know I had. And so that was a strategy I had for a very long time because I know the only way to absorb anything and to retain information is to teach it, practice it, etc. So I would take all the objections, I wrote them all out every time I went into an appointment. And then when I was in an appointment with the seller on the phone, I go, can I tell you the questions you're not asking that you probably should? And it builds unbelievable rapport.
Yeah.
They're like, whoa, this guy's like laying it all out.
Yeah.
And you should, especially in creative finance, you should make sure that, you know, there's a lot of disclosure.
Especially since, you know, tomorrow or the next day, they're talking to their brother or whatever, and somebody else, or they think about it, and now it creates doubt because there's these concerns that maybe they were not thinking about in the moment. So addressing all of this up front, you believe is a really smart way to handle these objections.
Yeah, and I also believe in the black swan thing. I don't know if you ever researched like, what's the guy, the FBI negotiator guy?
I know what you're talking about.
So he talks about the black swan, which is the unknown enemy.
Yeah.
Right. So the unknown enemy is an objection they have in their brain that they haven't brought up to you because they feel like you're going to be offended by it or be defensive. Or a black swan could be an agent friend or a family member or an attorney or somebody in their life, a financial advisor, their wife, whoever it is. That's the unknown enemy. So you want to bring all those out as soon as possible and address every one of those before you get into the negotiation part.
Really smart.
Because you'll run into things like, well, can I have my attorney look at it? Can I want to talk to my wife. That means when you get those objections, it's because you didn't do your homework up front. Okay, so I extract all those up front by asking certain questions. So for me, when I'm talking to a seller and the seller says, okay, so let's go to Dave, the guy that I got the really great testimonial from. Dave's like, okay, well, this sounds amazing. This will solve the problem that I currently have. But Dave's number one objection was debt to income ratio. Okay.
So one of the 5. Yeah.
One of the 5. So here's Dave. Dave's story is this. He's driving home from work. His house is over on the right. His neighborhood's on the right. He sees a new home community being built on the left. And he goes, oh, you know, I've got extra time. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. My wife's not expecting me right now. So he juts off to the left. He goes to a new home community, falls in love with the house, goes in without talking to his wife, puts $20,000 check down as a non-refundable. And he goes, sweetheart, we're moving across to the brand new stuff. Okay. So what do they say at the new home community? They go, you can get approved. Your credit's good. Your this is good. Your job history is good. The problem is you have an existing mortgage that you need to sell. Okay. So the loan officer for the new home community says you have to sell this house in order to qualify for the other. Yeah. So this is going to be a common objection for people. So Dave goes home, tells his wife's like, amazing, this is great. We've been here for 19 years. So we either would have to renovate this and update it, or we could just sell it and move into a brand new updated one with all the new technology. Love it. Let's do it. The problem is Dave, even though he had been living in that house for 19 years, had just recently done a cash out refinance.
Sucked out some equity.
Sucked out his equity. So they hire a real estate agent as a friend. Real estate agent goes to list the property, but every time they go to list the property, they find out he's gonna have to come out of pocket to sell the house. So I've told this story a whole bunch of times, but I love this story because it handles so many objections. So agent reaches out to me after 5.5 months, says, hey, will you come talk to the seller? I go to talk to the seller. Dave's number one objection is like, I'll do this right now. I don't have to write a check out of my pocket. This is like a breath of fresh air because I just put 20 grand on a new home. And when you buy a new house, is that all you got to buy, or you got to buy furniture?
Yeah, appliances maybe, yeah.
Appliances, barbecue, pool, all the things that the builder didn't put in the house. You're so excited about it, you're like already committing this future funds that you don't even have to this new house that you're gonna move into. So Dave's like, whoa, I don't have to write a check to get rid of my house. I love it. So he goes, but the problem is, Pace, is that my loan officer on that house told me I can't get approved for that house until I sell this one. And I said, look, Dave, here's the problem. I used to be a loan officer. Loan officers are not the people that make the decisions on any loan. Who's the people? Do you know the people that make the decisions on loans?
The underwriter.
The underwriter. It's always the underwriter. And the underwriter is not the person you're ever talking to as the consumer.
No.
There's this little sales guy that they call a loan officer, and all he is a sales guy.
He's just the interface.
He's the interface. So I asked Dave, I go, Dave, and I'm asking you guys the same question. How is it that a real estate investor can go and buy multiple loans in their name, up to 10, sometimes 15 in their name, even though their debt to income ratio is not matching up? How do they do that? Yeah. They show income on property number one, and that proves to the underwriter that that is now being paid for so that they can get qualified for property number two. So Dave's
just like you do with a rental property.
Just like you do with a rental property. So I look at it and I go like, how is it any different going through a rental property than it is through this? And so what I do, we've done this over 400 times for both myself and my students, is when a loan officer says, sorry, we can't approve you for a new loan, your debt to income ratio is skewed because of your old one, we always tell them, let me call the underwriter. Now we've recorded these calls, so I don't really do it anymore. But I called Dave's underwriter and I said, hey, my name is Pace Morby. I'm buying Dave's house subject to. I'm taking over the payments. What do I need to do to show you those payments are being made so you can take those payments off his debt to income ratio and approve him for the new loan? The underwriter goes, okay, let me think about this for a minute. And I've structured these so many times before this, but here's one thing I've learned. I don't suggest the solution to underwriters. I let them suggest the solution after I put it in their lap. So the underwriter goes, okay, here's what we should do. Let's do a lease agreement that shows that you're leasing Dave's property and you make 2 payments up front, and I'll take the whole thing off his debt to income ratio. I go, done, no problem. So we write a lease agreement. In the lease agreement, it states I can cancel that lease at any point. So we sign the agreement. Dave moves into his new house. Once Dave moves into his new house,
convert it to seller
I convert
finance,
it to a sub two.
Yeah.
That's it. So we've done that, 400 plus times for other students. I've never seen a seller not get qualified for a new loan as long as you talk to the underwriter.
And you really have to understand how financing works, because what Pace is talking about here is the debt to income. In order to qualify for a new loan, they take your income, they take your existing debts, and they make sure that there's enough spread there to safely make that payment.
Usually like 40%. So they look at you on the high end, they go, all right, Pace makes $10,000 a month. That means he can afford a $4,000 monthly payment. Yeah. That's it. So if I have one house that costs me $3,000, and I want to buy a second house that's going to cost me $3,000, my debt to income ratio is now 60% going to house payments. You don't get approved. Yeah. So you have to get rid of that under that first $3,000 thing by showing it's being serviced. So this is the trick. So that was you can do it through a lease agreement, or let's say a year later, I buy a sell. That was like immediate right now. I'm buying his house right now. He's buying the other house right now. Do it with a lease agreement. If you're buying it sub 2, you're closing on it. They go rent for a while. And then a year, maybe 2 years later, they go to get approved for a new loan. What we do in that situation is we make sure that all of our sub 2 loans are being serviced by a licensed service company.
Which is smart anyway, because let them do all the payments and everything.
It's $17 a month.
Yes. So worth it.
It's so worth it. We use a company called West Star Loan Servicing, so anybody wants to use them, go look them up. And what they do is they take the money out of my account, They are licensed to service loans. They then make the payment for the sub 2 loan, and then they have all the documentation. It's kind of like when you buy a car, like a used car, and you go, do you have all your vehicle records? And they go, yeah, I got it in my glove compartments. Here's every oil change, here's this, here's proof that I paid for all these things, new tires, new belts, new this, water pump went out 2 years ago. It's like all the proof. So the new underwriter for the new loan for your seller, if you show them it's being serviced, they will take off all the debt.
Yeah,
as long as it's being serviced.
In the lending world, we call that seasoning. So what you're doing is you're proving that you've been seasoning the loan by making the payments. Because think about it from a lender's perspective. If Pace has been making that loan on time every month for 12 months and you can show history, then the lender feels really good because this isn't just something you signed yesterday. This is something that's been happening on time every month.
And then you add a third-party servicer to that equation, and you know now it's a licensed company that does validates it. And they keep all the records. You show that to the loan officer and they go, oh, this is great. They're not responsible for this payment anymore. In fact, you're the owner. It's just an old debt. Boom, done.
Yeah.
We don't run into issues with DTI.
Perfect. So that's one of the objections is, does it disqualify your seller from being able to buy a new home?
Right.
Pace just explained some strategies there to allow them to then take that debt out of their debt to income ratio and still buy a new home.
There you go.
So that's one major objection.
One major objection. I'm sorry for the long stories, but I hope these things make sense.
The stories make it real, Pace. I love that you give a story because it takes these concepts and it makes them real world application.
Right.
So I'm so glad you're doing that.
Okay, cool. So second one is a big one, due on sale.
Due on sale. And this is what everybody, in the investing world, they all bring this up.
They all bring it up.
Investors bring this one up.
I call it
not
the
so much
boogeyman.
homeowners because
No, they don't know.
they don't really know what a due on sale is, but investors tend to be, someone scared them about that or something.
Yeah, it was like an attorney or somebody said something or a broker. They brought up so it's either called the acceleration clause or the due on sale clause or calling the note due.
You're right.
Those are the three ways people say it.
And explain what that is. What is a due on sale and why could it be triggered? Or why is there a worry that it's triggered?
Okay, so let's say that Jerry goes and buys a house for $200,000. He goes to Wells Fargo and gets a loan. Remember, he goes and gets approved. Wells Fargo says, we'll give you the $200,000 to buy that house. Jerry decides he doesn't want this house 3 months later, and Jerry can't sell the house. So I go, Jerry, I'll just take over your payments, right? You give me the ownership, and I'll take over the payments. Perfectly legal. There's nothing illegal. That's another objection I get all the time. People are like, this has got to be illegal. So I squashed that a long time ago. I used to bring a lot of attorneys on my YouTube channel. I go, is this illegal? And they go, nope, we do this in every state, blah, 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 blah. So what happens is Wells Fargo sees that Jerry transferred the deed over to me without paying off the debt, okay? And what happens is now Wells Fargo has the right, not the obligation, they have the right, not the obligation, to come to me and go, we demand that you sell this house and give us our money back, you give Jerry the house back, or you refinance us and get us paid off. If you don't, we are going to foreclose on you, and that foreclosure process, because you didn't pay it off, is called the due on sale clause, which means our debt was due upon the sale Jerry sold to you.
Because you transferred ownership.
You transferred ownership, so the due on sale clause. Acceleration means it's the same exact thing, but different phrasing. Acceleration means they want to accelerate the time when this thing is due, right? Because Jerry might still have 30 years to pay, and they go, we want it right now.
Yeah, and this is in what's called the loan covenants. So Wells Fargo has loan covenants with Jerry that say, in the event that you transfer ownership, you trigger this due on sale clause.
Right.
So that's what creates that worry or that fear that's going to happen.
Right. And so by my calculation, this is my personal experience, you'll run into the due on sale clause every about 1,000 to 2,000 transactions.
Yeah, it's very rare.
It's very rare, but it does happen. It's happened to me 5 times.
Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you what we do in the due on sale clause, and this is how I overcome it with the seller. I go, let's plan on it happening. Yeah. Let's imagine that the due on sale clause happens today. Here's what happens. Step 1, the bank notices. Step 2, the bank sends you a letter. Step 3, I call the bank and go, hey, we are making the payments. There's nothing illegal. Can we just convince you to not do it? That happens 50% of the time. They're fine with it.
Because they're like, as long as someone's making the payment,
Right.
Why would we go through all this brain damage?
Banks don't want to be.
They don't want to foreclose. Heck no. That's expensive, takes time. They're not getting any payments.
It looks bad on them to foreclose.
It's gonna become a non-performing asset, which means they can't lend against it. All these problems.
Right. So
And why, if you're making the payment every month, why would they
it's
do
crazy.
on sale?
But this story will tell you why. It's crazy. So I call the bank. Usually 50% of the time they go, oh, okay, we didn't know what was going on. The deed transferred. We just thought maybe the title company messed up. Okay, great, no problem. Who's your servicing company? And they just want to communicate with the servicing company to make sure the payments
Just want to feel warm and fuzzy about it.
Right, that's 50% of the time, okay? The other time when we've had this situation happen, I get a letter from a company called Johnston Bank. There's 6 branches in the planet.
So they're paying attention.
They're paying attention. They're very small. So here's what happens. We have a seller. It's on Lost Dutchman Trail in Mesa, Arizona. I'll never forget this deal.
Don't tell us the address.
I will not tell you the address, but I still own it, so you can type up my address and whatever. So here's what happens. Seller, this is really interesting. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. This is great. This is how you overcome the due on sale clause. So seller is in foreclosure. He owes money to Johnston Bank, right? That's his mortgage company. He's 20 grand behind. What my company does is we go, oh, let's catch up his 20,000. Let's reinstate his loan and we'll close escrow the very next day. Don't do that. Tip is catch up the arrears, get a letter of reinstatement from the bank and then close 3 or 4 days later. Okay, wait some time. We reinstated immediately. We then closed the next day.
They saw it because they're looking at the reinstatement.
Bro, this is what happened. We get a letter from the Johnston Bank about 30 days later saying we're calling the note due, acceleration clause, due on sale, blah, blah, blah in the letter. I'm like, okay. So I call the bank and I go, hey, I'm just calling, this is what's going on. They go, okay, no problem. Let me transfer you to the owner of the bank. Huh?
Owner of the bank.
I ain't getting a hold of Bank of America's owner or Chase or any of these people, Jamie Dimon or any of these people. So I get a hold of the president of the bank. He's the son of the original founder. His only job in the bank was to reinstate foreclosures. These guys are old school. They literally had a stack of manila folders. Every Friday, he went into the office and he would go through the folders and physically take the manila folders from here, put them over here, and type in the computer that he approves they're back and reinstated. Very archaic, old school process. So I get on the phone with him. I go, hey, I'm buying the house sub 2. I caught up the arrears. What's the problem? He goes, actually, there's no problem. We have a lot of people that buy houses sub 2. We don't have a problem. It's just company policy. My daddy, who started the bank, put this in policy. We follow my dad's policy to a T. And I go, okay. So if you have a lot of clients doing this and you see this happening all the time and you're privy to this, what's the solution? And this is what he says. He goes, oh, it's really easy. Here's what you do. Deed the property back to the homeowner, okay? And then repurchase the property on either one of 2 options. Either A, on a lease option, where the option price is the mortgage balance upon the date you execute the option.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lease. All my lease payments go towards the mortgage, okay? And my option price...
The lease amount is in the mortgage amount, okay, because it's subject to, basically. It's a rework.
It's a rework of sub 2. All it does is prevent you from having to deed the property, okay? And then your option price is whatever the mortgage balance is on the day of the execution. Okay. So if I execute in 10 years, the mortgage balance is way lower. So it's essentially a sub 2 deal. I go, really? It's that simple? He goes, yeah, just deed it back to the guy and then repurchase on a lease option.
This is in the situation where, let's say the bank is just not gonna let it go. They're gonna call the loan due. It's gonna mess up the whole deal. What you're saying is fine, convert it to this structure the lease option this way. It's essentially doing the same thing as the sub 2.
The only thing is the seller still holds the deed. Now, here's a safer way to do it, okay? So this is option number 2. This is the way that I'd done it prior. I deed it back to the homeowner and I repurchase it on an executory contract.
Which is one of our strategies.
One of our strategies.
One of our creative financing we're gonna get to, yeah.
Right, so when you have an agent or a seller that you just can't overcome the due on sale clause, skip sub 2 and go straight to executory contract and go.
Even better.
With an executory contract, we go straight to this. We don't ever have to worry about due on sale clause. The deed stays in limbo and it doesn't transfer until I decide I want to sell, refinance, or pay it off.
Executory contract basically is taking the deed and putting it in escrow, and it doesn't get recorded until the payoff happens at some future date. So it prevents that due on sale.
So an executory contract for you guys to very simply, I always tie things back into cars because people understand cars. But you've ever bought a car and got a car loan? Okay, you got a bank to give you money to buy a car.
Yeah.
That's an executory contract. The bank holds the title.
That's right.
The title is actually in your name, but they hold it for security purposes. Yeah. And it's not until you sell it, refinance it, or pay it off that
you actually get it.
Send it to you. Yeah. So it's an executory contract. You've all done it. You've done an executory contract if you've ever bought a car with a car loan.
Yeah.
Okay?
Totally.
So the deed, it just doesn't come into your name until the appropriate time, so it doesn't trigger any due on sale clause.
But again, you're not worrying about that unless that very rare 1 in a million chances that it becomes an issue. And honestly, it's crazy that you even had that happen. If you're dealing with any of the big banks, they have no way of even doing a checks and balance to know what deeds have transferred. How could they possibly know
I did a video
on thousands of loans?
So I bought a sub 2 deal from Cody Sperber like 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. I buy the deal. I went to the appointment, lock up the deal, and I flipped it. So I bought it subject to, and I took it retail. When I was taking it retail, we were going to close like 3 or 4 days later to our new buyer. I knew that buyer was going to pay off the sub 2 loan, right? So I called probably for 4 hours to that bank, and I recorded this whole thing. I put it on my YouTube channel. I'm like, hey, do you guys know that I own this house subject to? You guys need to call the due on sale clause right now. Do you guys not know? And people are like, what's subject to? What's due? None of the bank employees even know what the heck it is.
Right. Because they don't have a process for that.
They don't have a process. They don't have a department. They have nothing that will tell them what's going on. It's only in a very weird situation. Here's the top 3 reasons I see the due on sale clause. Number 1, you suck and you stop making payments, or your buyer stopped making payments.
That's definitely because now they have a process for someone missing a payment.
Right. They look it up. They go, what the heck is going on? Okay, so if you're not making payments, that's number 1. Number 2, if you fail to do the insurance properly, okay? Or number 3, I've only seen this one time. It's one of the 5 times we've got the due on sale clause called on us. The seller's significant other ratted on you because they were upset that they sold the property without them, because it could have been like they weren't on title or deed. The significant other sold it to you and they called the bank. Okay, I've had that happen one time. We called the bank and we're like, yeah, we bought it.
But Pace, this is mostly just a fear that is not even a likely, very remote chance it's even going to become an issue.
Yeah, because I get people to go, well, why don't you just buy everything on a lease option, or why don't you buy everything on an executory contract? And I'm like, because I know the probability. I've done so many deals. It is so absolutely unbelievably rare. And even when it does happen, I have a really quick solution that solves the problem in 2 minutes. So why not just buy it on sub 2? Right? So that's number 2. So when I'm talking to a seller and a seller says, well, what about this due on sale clause? Or what about this? Most of the sellers won't say that. The agent, the broker, or an attorney will. There's the answer. I gave you the answer of how to overcome it. But I bring it up to the seller before they ever ask. I go, can I tell you about the due on sale clause? Something you should know about. Because it's going to come up in the paperwork. Because we state, in the event of the due on sale clause,
here's what we're going to do.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to deed the property back to you. I need a power of attorney to do all of this without your involvement. Once I buy a sub 2 seller finance novation agreement with any seller, I never have to talk to them ever again. So that's objection number 2, due on sale clause.
Awesome. So objection number 3, let's say, what was the third one?
Number 3 is DTI.
Due on sale.
Due on sale. Number 3 is
missed payment. What if you don't make my payment?
What if you fail to make payments?
What if you fail to make my payment?
Okay, so I go, let's imagine, seller, that I get abducted by aliens. I'm not even on this planet anymore. Some people would argue I'm not even on this planet right now. I'm an alien already. But let's say that I get
I've wondered that.
Yeah, sometimes, the valid concern. So let's say I get abducted and I'm not even physically here to make your payment. What happens? What do you do? And they go, I don't know. What do I do? And I go, in our paperwork, it always lists out what to do in the event of my default. So we put in our agreements what we call a performance clause that states, if I ever fail to perform, the property will revert back to you without the need of a foreclosure. Because they're deathly afraid of, like, what if I have to foreclose on you? I'm like, yeah, it's a valid concern. What if I get abducted by an alien? What if something bad happens to me? Whatever. You keep any down payment I pay you, any payments I made along the way, any renovation costs. And so I get, most of the time, this is what I get from sellers. They go, so it's actually kind of a good thing because people in sub 2 are really in financial despair. They're going through something. And a lot of them don't want to get rid of their house, just like people getting foreclosed on. They don't want to lose their house. That's the best option for them. Mm-hmm. So I go, if I default, the property comes back to you and it's no longer in arrears because I caught up the arrears. You got any down payment you got. I made payments along the way. I cleaned up the property.
Appreciation that may have happened, all of it. Yeah.
And anything that you've gotten along the way, you keep it all and you take the property back. And they go, oh wait, so it's actually better for me if you default. And I go, yeah, the way I structure it for you, the seller, it's better if I default because you'll be in a better, stronger position.
Yeah.
So you just got to structure the deal in a way that if you do default, the seller
And
wins.
then do you tell them to, listen, we set up with an escrow company, they're going to make the payments, you're going to get notified. Yeah. You're never going to need to worry, because a lot of times it's just reassurance.
Yeah, I'll pull up my email on my phone and I'll show them, here's all my Weststar service payments. And you'll see on my Weststar service payments, I received an email, the bank received an email, the insurance company received an email, and the seller who sold the property to me 3 years ago receives an email showing
So they feel peace of mind every month that they're getting their payment. Their payments
every payment's being made, they're fine. Yeah. What's funny is most sellers, when they're like in the very beginning of the negotiation on a sub 2, they have some of these concerns, and you overcome them, you buy the deal, and then a year later, this is a great story. I'll be very quick with it. I know we got 2 more objections. I had a lady that called, we're working a deal and she goes, can I get a testimonial? I go, yeah, I got this great lady. Her name's Mary. We bought the house from her 2 years ago. She'll give you a great testimonial. I don't tell Mary anybody's going to call her because I want it to be an authentic, genuine testimonial. So the lady calls Mary and she goes, hey, my name is Tammy and I'm buying a house. Pace is buying my house, this thing called sub 2 and blah, 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 blah. And the seller goes, oh yeah, I remember that.
Completely forgot.
I remember that. You know what her biggest objection was? What? Her biggest objection were all of these things, but her thing, she kept telling me over there, she goes, Pace, I just want to be done with the house. I go, how are you not done with the house? She goes, well, because the payment, the mortgage will still be in my name. I'm like, you won't even know it's there. It affects you zero. In fact, you had late payments. My new payments are going to bring your mortgage in good standing, and I'm going to improve your credit. You're going to wake up in 2 years and go, why is my credit an 820? And she was like, okay, great. I guess we had to, and then 2 years later, she didn't remember she sold her house to us. Yeah. Crazy.
Because you solved the biggest thing, which is peace of mind.
Right.
Like you gave somebody peace of mind, and that's got the most value on a property somebody doesn't want anymore.
Yep. And so another big piece that people get, so I would say objection number 4 is this legal? Okay, is this legal? And I didn't know how to overcome that because like when you hear this from a guy that's trying to buy your house, I was like, how do I overcome this?
Yeah, because you're not an attorney and...
I'm not an attorney.
If you say yes, they're still going to wonder and yeah.
Right, and what I used to do that was really good is I would say, well, why don't you call my title company? They're a disinterested third party. Their job is to be basically a mediator between the two of us and like be disinterested. Call them and ask them like, do I do the thing? And that always worked. But then one day I was like, dude, you know what I should do? I should make a 2-minute video from my attorney that when a seller says, this is my objection, we go, hey, here's a video from our attorney explaining this, this, and this. And I've never had a problem ever about the
Because
legalities.
by the way, you can call their law office and verify yourself if you'd like.
And when you get a seller that goes, well, can I have my attorney review this? I go, no problem. What's your attorney's email? I'll email him with my attorney and your attorney together. So then that way my attorney is in there going, what are your problems? What issues do you have? And I've never had that problem. I don't know, 3 or 4 years I stopped having that problem.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, okay, so that's great. That's is this legal? That solves that one.
Uh-huh. And it is, guys. It's completely legal. All 50 states. You'll get some title companies and escrow companies that will say, this is not legal. You can't do this on this. You can't do this. It just shows their lack of...
Only because they don't understand it. Right. Yeah, when people don't understand something, they tend to say it's illegal.
Yeah, and don't you have, like, even in wholesale and in fix and flip, when you do a double escrow or when you bring in a second like I've seen escrow officers not even know wholesale is legal.
Yeah.
You can't assign.
There's title companies that say the assignment is illegal. More like you don't understand how it works, so therefore it now is defaults to illegal.
There you go.
But it's not. You just don't understand how it works.
That is correct. And I've had I had this lady in Florida a couple months ago. One of my students opens escrow. The lady goes, sub 2 is not legal. So I go, all right, let me call her on a Zoom. I always call people on Zoom so people can see the recordings and how I talk to people and stuff. So I call her up and I go, hey, my name is Pace Morby, and I heard that you said that sub 2 is illegal. And she goes, well, it is. And I go, great. Can you show me where you learned that from?
Yeah.
And so she hung up. So I then called her again and I said, hey, I understand you're hanging up. It would be great if you just told me you didn't know rather than tell people it's illegal. And she goes, okay, fine. Is that what you want to hear? I don't know. I go, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So those are the first 4. So the fifth one, and there's a dozen that you'll run into that are very microscopic, but I run into a lot of times, well, in a sub 2 transaction, how does the agent get paid?
Yes.
How does an agent get paid? Because
or closing fees or other expenses, how are those covered? Yeah. The agent's a big one though. If it's an on-market deal, whether it's an agent, you got to know going right in, because I do a lot of sub 2 with agents. You got to know going right in that if you don't solve the agent commission issue, that agent is going to not present your offer. They're not going to help the seller. They're going to become adversarial in the transaction.
It's a gate, man. It's like you want to go into the promised land and have a conversation with the seller and negotiate with them, but there's a gate locking you from going in there, and that's the agent. The only key to unlock the agent's gate is, I'm going to pay your commission.
I'm going to pay your commissions.
Don't worry about your commissions. I don't care. You can have all the objections in the world, but the one thing you don't need to worry about is your commissions. I will make sure you're paid on that. Yeah. So
super important.
The last 3 agents I closed escrow with on sub 2 deals, like Chandler, Mesa, and Buckeye, I had those agents come on my YouTube channel and do like little interviews, and I go, did your seller make more money selling to me sub 2? And they go, oh my gosh, way more. Yeah. Did you make your full commission? Yes. Was this the first time you did it? Yeah. Were you worried? Do you think it was sketchy? Yeah, I thought it was sketchy until we closed escrow, and I go, holy moly, this is real. So I put all of that on the YouTube channel, and then when I have students or people go, what do I say to an agent? I go, send them this video.
You know, what's great about that too is, and this is just another benefit of working with agents, is once that agent has a successful transaction with you and they kind of see the process and how they got paid, they're going to run into that same situation again in the future with another seller who's upside down, and they're going to be calling you and saying, hey, I got another one. Make sure I'm getting my commission, and let's put another one together.
Yeah.
And you're happy to do that.
They'll actually start looking for them. So I just did a deal a couple of weeks ago with an agent. He had a list. This is interesting. Listing cancels. It's expired listings. It's a great place to find sub 2 deals, expired listings. I end up buying the house sub 2. He sees that I closed escrow, and he goes, how the heck did you buy this house? Yeah. So his name's Jeff. So Jeff, I go, come down to my office. We're doing like a big event, and I'll educate you on a whiteboard of how it works. So 2 days ago, Jeff comes to me and goes, I got another one. I go, where'd you find it? He goes, I'm just calling on-market listings. So now I got an agent calling on-market listings that have been on the market for over 90 days. And he's now going, I can make more money as an agent in creative finance with other people's listings than I could by me going and just finding new listings. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a whole strategy, especially right now.
Especially right now, because we're going to be hitting an upside down situation where people cannot sell properties because the market's dipped below what they owe.
Right.
So it's going to create this opportunity, but you've got to be able to go take it to those agents or be able to talk to sellers about how this works.
Right. Let me take over your payments. Here's the objections that we typically run into. Heck, send your seller this video. Hi seller, if you send the video to the seller, these are the most common objections and how we overcome them. And if you're struggling to explain it to your seller, send them a video and let them see us explain.
That's a fantastic idea. The last one, I think, which will actually be a bridge into the next strategy, is when you're doing subject to and their loan is low enough to where they also have a lot of equity. So you're taking over the payment, but then there's this extra equity and there's some spread there that the seller also wants.
Right.
Right. And so when a seller says, well, yeah, I'm okay with you taking over my payment, but what do we do about the purchase price being more than my existing balance? How do we handle this situation?
Or they don't even say, what do we do about it? They're like, they assume that the only way to do that transaction is for you to pay all of that in cash. And so you go into that and you go, I can't do that. What's funny is you go, oh, I can't do a sub 2 deal because they have too much equity. So you guys out there in YouTube land are out there only looking for no equity deals because you think that we can't do anything with the equity when we can. You just have to address it properly, which we'll do in the next video.
Yeah, awesome. So there's a way to overcome that one. We'll talk about it as we explain that strategy. Yeah. You call it a hybrid, right? Where you're doing a combination of sub 2 and creating another lien position or another loan, seller financed. So really cool strategy, guys. I hope these objections really helped you. Use this, like Pace said, as a way to preempt these objections, right? Get really good at understanding them, being able to explain them. Pace talked about where agents or title or an attorney can actually help you overcome them because they'll be the authority that can help a seller feel comfortable about it. So awesome, Pace. Really, really enjoyed this video with sub 2. Now, let's be sure to watch for the next video, which is going to be that hybrid of sub 2 and seller carry. And thanks again. We'll see you on that next video.